Let's go. Today I'm talking about the 2022 film Halloween Ends. As always, this review is going to be spoiler free, so if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to this channel and like the video. Halloween Kills is the final chapter of the David Gordon Green trilogy. After my positive response to Halloween Kills, I was curious to see how they would end this thing, so I saw it in the theater. And let's just say, it's not exactly the ending that I expected. This time the plot follows a new character, Corey Cunningham, a young man in Haddonfield who, after being involved with a local tragedy, becomes a pariah to many in the town. So he forms a relationship with Laurie Strode's granddaughter Allison, who's the only person who seems to understand what it's like to be an outcast. But little does she know that due to the abuse he suffered, Corey is becoming a killer. Oh yeah, and Michael Myers shows up for a bit, I guess. Now, I'm holding my tongue on complaining because first, I have to give a huge compliment to the opening scene of this movie. It is fantastic, and I did not see it coming. In case you haven't seen the movie, I won't spoil it here, but it sets up Corey's story in a really great way, as well as just being a really solid little self-contained sequence. In my opinion, it's one of the best moments in this franchise. But unfortunately, I think the movie peaks with the opening, and while I don't necessarily dislike everything that follows, nothing in this movie ever reaches that height again. My main issue with this movie, one that is shared by many fans, is that it's just so unfocused. The filmmakers can't decide whether they want to tell the story of Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers, or if they want to tell the story of Corey, a bullied kid who turns to violence. So they compromise and try to do both, which means that neither one ends up being particularly satisfying. The Michael versus Laurie story that was advertised in the trailers definitely could have been good, but it's extremely marginalized throughout the movie. Michael spends a great deal of the runtime just chilling in a sewer, so when they finally try to shoehorn him in at the end, it just feels like bad fan service. The final fight is also just unsatisfying, and it also doesn't make much sense either given how invincible Michael was in the last movie. The Corey story is much more interesting, and you can tell it's the one that these filmmakers wanted to tell. If it had been its own movie, it might have actually been decent. But the way they tie the two stories together is forced and unsatisfying. It feels like David Gordon Green ran out of ideas for a third Halloween movie, so he just took a spec script about a kid who becomes a killer and then tried to tie it into the Halloween story. There is some good stuff here, mainly with the character of Corey. It's the fact that this is the third movie in a Halloween trilogy that ruins it. But if I may, even though I know it's pointless, allow me to present my pitch for how this movie could have worked. You could start the movie with that fantastic opening scene and then immediately cut to the Laurie versus Michael story. In the first 30 minutes or so of the movie, you could give us that final showdown, and then 30 minutes in, there's no more Michael. That would certainly surprise everyone, and I would be fascinated to see where the rest of the movie is going to go and what it's going to be about. You could then dedicate the rest of the runtime to telling Corey's story and give that a satisfying conclusion while actually presenting an interesting idea about how evil spreads. That's a movie I would love to see, but unfortunately it's not the one we got, so I gotta review the real Halloween Ends rather than my fantasy version. And this is far from the satisfying conclusion to the story that I was hoping for. It's a messy and unfocused movie. Maybe in the future we'll get a better ending to this franchise, but for now this is what we've got. In my opinion, it's a solid 5 out of 10.